Y Brazo says, what would you suggest for how many meals before training legs? It doesn't matter. I've trained legs before before 2 meals. I've trained legs, after 2 meals. I've trained legs after 5 meals. It doesn't matter. What matters to me when training legs is I take a longer break. So if normally I eat and I go to the gym an hour later to train, when I train legs, sometimes I'll take an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. I don't care. I'd rather have an empty stomach than try and force myself to go to the gym after an hour and then puke all my food up, or not even puke, but even worse, have it like a stomach bloat through the entire leg day. That's a horrible feeling. So I always eat lighter for my pre-workout meal on leg days. I usually like to go after 2 meals. So I'll have like my breakfast and I'll have a lighter meal, like a easy digestible meal. And then I usually, like I said, I give myself an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours before legs. And then I go in there and I crush it. Bry Good says, when you begin dieting for a contest, do you choose a specific show, or do you begin dieting and get to a good spot, then make a decision? I tried the second way, where you try and get in good shape, and then once you're in good shape, you're like, okay, I'm going to do that show. Doesn't work for me. The only thing that works for me is putting pressure on myself. So I have to pick a day on the calendar and go, that's the show. And then from that point, I focus everything I have into that show, and that's when I end up in the best shape of my life. The shows where I've been like, I'm just going to get in shape and I'll pick the closest one, they either didn't come to fruition because I decided not to do them, or I actually forced myself to do them and I didn't look as good as I wanted to. I think personally, for someone like me with my personality anyway, the best situation you could possibly be in is to pick the show, pick the date, get all your ducks in a row, and focus all your energy on that one day. Pawan PB says, if there was no bodybuilding, what should you do? Or what would I do? I'm sure it's a language thing. What would I do? If there was no bodybuilding, I probably would have been in sales, car sales, home sales, something along those lines. Or I might have been a police officer. I went to school to be a police officer. That's probably what I would have done. But there's bodybuilding, so there's no need to do anything else. This is what I decided I want to do. This is what I'm happy with. I think police work was intriguing to me, but I also like sales because sales has the same effect as bodybuilding in a sense that the harder you work, the more time you put in, the more you get back from it, right? Because your sales, let's say you're a car salesman or a real estate salesman, the more time you put into your craft, the more contacts you make, the more houses you show, the more you're going to sell. And that's a lot like bodybuilding. So there's a very nice trajectory, the very nice synergy between how hard you work, how many hours you put in, and what your reward is. Whereas being a police officer isn't necessarily like that. It's more of a seniority thing where like you could work your ass off, but you can only grow so fast, and that's one thing I don't like. I like being able to put my effort into something and then see the effort come back to me. Dover 9813 says, is it always calories in, calories out, or is there quality of calorie? Lane Norton says you can diet off Pop-Tarts. Okay, this has been beaten to death, but I'm just going to give my opinion, and I don't care if it's wrong. It's just the way what I believe. You can diet on a Pop-Tart, okay? If my only objective right now at 285 pounds is just to lose fat, I don't care how I look. I don't care what my muscle looks like. I don't care about anything. I just want to lose fat. Fine. My caloric intake for the day is 3,500 calories. I'm going to diet off Pop-Tarts, and I'm only going to eat 33 or 3,000 calories worth of Pop-Tarts. Okay, that means I'm going to be in a 500 calorie deficit every day. So I will lose fat every day. Okay. But if I'm only eating Pop-Tarts and I'm not eating protein and I'm training, I'm probably going to lose muscle. So if I'm losing muscle, that means as I lose muscle, my caloric intake for the day is going to go down as well, because your caloric intake is based on how much muscle you have. A lot of it is anyway. So as my caloric deficit drops, I'm going to have to eat less Pop-Tarts to keep losing fat. Okay. Do you understand what I mean? So now I'm training, but I'm not eating any protein. I'm not rebuilding muscle because all I'm eating is Pop-Tarts. So my caloric intake for the day used to be 3,500 calories, but now because I've lost 5 pounds of muscle, now it's 33. So now to keep that 500 calorie deficit, I got to eat 2,800 calories. Oh, 2 weeks have gone by. I lost more muscle. Now my caloric intake for the day is 3,000. Now I got to go to 2,500 calories. Do you see what I'm doing? Do you see what happens when you don't eat right? So that means the longer I diet, if I'm not eating the right foods, the more muscle I'm going to burn off my body. The more muscle I burn off my body, the less amount of calories I can take in every day. So eventually you're going to burn muscle off until you get to 2,000 calories. You're going to be eating 1,500 calories a day worth of Pop-Tarts to keep that 500 calorie deficit. Now, the right way to do it is to eat a high protein, low carb, moderate fat, or high, or there's your own setup, but it's to eat a high protein diet that will help you rebuild the muscle that you're breaking down in the gym. The reason we do that, it matters how much muscle you can keep. The more muscle I can keep, the more my caloric deficit for the day doesn't have to change. So if I started my diet at 3,500 calories and I'm eating an awesome diet, chicken, rice, asparagus, whatever, all these really clean, high protein foods, and I'm rebuilding all the muscle that I'm training with, right? That means my caloric intake for the day is going to stay at 3,500. And that also means that my my deficit, I can keep eating 3,000 calories a day worth of food and my deficit will stay at 500. Do you understand what that means? So because I'm retaining all my muscle by eating the proper foods and training my ass off, my body can always stay at that level where it needs 3,500 calories to maintain my size. And I can always stay at the 3,000 calorie threshold so I can keep that 500 calorie deficit. Now, if I want to have a Pop-Tart one day, I can do that. I can take out some of the other calories and have a Pop-Tart, and I'm not going to lose muscle and it'll be okay. If Lane's saying that, I agree with him. But if he's saying a calorie is a calorie and you can look the same and diet the same while eating chicken and rice versus Pop-Tarts and Oreos, sorry, I disagree. Okay? I disagree, and I challenge anybody. I will do the experiment with them. I challenge anybody to do that experiment with me over the course of 6 months or 3 months, because I think if you're only eating Pop-Tarts and Oreos, let's say you're not eating any protein, you're going to lose muscle on that diet, and I'm not. And I'm going to look way better at the end of the 3 months having retained all my muscle than you would eating just garbage every day. So a calorie is not a calorie. It's only, a calorie is a calorie only when you're talking about fat loss, not when you're talking about body composition. And even if you're talking about fat loss, a calorie is a calorie, but in the long haul, if you're losing muscle, you're going to end up looking worse because you're going to burn off a bunch of muscle trying to burn off fat. It's a complex thing, but just my belief. Travis Kraft says, do you ever take a week of full rest or just deload? I kind of already answered that. After my shows every year, I take a week off after my rebound or before my rebound, just right after the show. Depends how I feel and how many shows I did that year. But if I did 2 or 3 shows in a row, I'll take a week off right after the last show, just relax. If I only did 1 show, I usually can't help but get back into the gym, in which case I take the week off after the rebound. Like after 6 weeks, I'll take a week off and rest. Thomas Foley says, is it better to change your compounds on off season or just come off to clean out your blood and receptors? I've tried both, and I will say that personally, I think coming off is better than just changing compounds. So if you do some people do a 6-week cycle that's hard and then a 6-week cycle that's not hard. So they'll do I'm not going to give doses, but let's just say they'll do let's say they'll do a hard trend cycle, right? Like a Tren E and some other compounds and whatever. And that's their hard cycle. They'll do that for 6 to 8 weeks. And then they'll do like something that's not as toxic, like a test in primo or something like that, right? And it's a little bit simpler, a little bit easier on the body, and they'll run that for 6 weeks, and they'll go back and forth, but not without lowering doses. Just kind of keep bouncing back and forth between toxic and non-toxic. I don't really agree with that formula. I like go hard for 8, 10, 12 weeks and then go off. Now, I have changed my views in the last few years that I do think it depends how long you've been bodybuilding, but if you've been bodybuilding for a long time, you might need to stay on like 250 milligrams a test, because if you've been bodybuilding for a long time, your test levels will just crash after 4 weeks of being off, and it won't be enough time for you to clean your body out, but it also won't be like you're not going to recover and get your test levels back. So then you're just running with zero tests in your body or low tests in your body, and it doesn't feel good. If you just started bodybuilding and you're like within 5 or 10 years of starting, you can probably, even 5 years, you can probably go off all the way and just take a PCT cycle of some sort, like HCG or something, or Clomid, and you could be okay for 6 to 8 weeks and then get your blood work done, see what it looks like, and then get back on. But those things, it's not a cookie cutter thing. That's why people ask me like, well, why don't you give us like doses, and why don't you give us like cycle advice? It's not cookie cutter. A lot of it depends on what your cycles have been in the past. A lot of it depends on how long you've been on or how long you've been using. A lot of it depends on like what you used and how much of it. Like, a lot of these things matter, man. So you can't just be like, this is a cookie cutter way to do it. You have to kind of feel out your own situation. Marcel Strasser says, is a heavy deadlift squat bad for a small waist? I don't think so, personally. I know a lot of people say it is, but I know Lee Haney used to squat. I know Arnold used to squat. I know, like, listen, all the guys throughout history have been squatting and deadlifting, and their waists were all fine. I believe the waist issue is a food issue. We have to eat such large amounts of food now that we're constantly stretching out our stomachs. And it's not a drug issue, because now you see guys that all of a sudden can do vacuums. But it's because no emphasis was placed on the stomach. So nobody was training their TVA. Nobody was training their abs. Everybody was binging their fucking ass off, just trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, guys are focused on not binging. Guys are eating a little cleaner in the off season. Guys are eating a little smaller meals, but more often, so the meals aren't as big and they're not stretching out the stomach as much. Guys are training their TVA more. Guys are training their abs more. So, and now you see a lot of open bodybuilders doing vacuums. Not me yet, because I can't do it for some fucking reason, but a lot of bodybuilders are. And I don't think squat, deadlift, or bench or any of that means you're going to have a thick waist. Steve Bucilli says, is it possible to tap into stored body fat for energy while training with weights? And if so, should you forego carbs pre-workout to help with that? I don't believe that's possible unless you are in ketosis. So if you're on a ketogenic diet and you've been on one for a while and you measured your ketones, that means your body is burning fat stores for energy, in which case, when you train with weights, your body will burn fat stores for energy. Otherwise, I don't think that's really what's going to happen. I mean, if you're not eating, your body's going to tap into fat stores, but it's also going to tap into muscle stores, in my opinion. So I don't think that's a good situation to try to make happen unless, like I said, you're in a keto diet. Bar None Fit Shake says, what to do about body hair if your girlfriend won't help you out on the back? It sucks. Make her. Tell her. Say, look, this is part of the fucking deal. If you're with me, you're going to shave my back, or else we can't be together. It's the way it is. I mean, look, if your girlfriend loves you, she will shave your back. That's all there is to it. And also, I don't advise shaving anyway. Get yourself a trimmer like the one we use for our beards, and just use it with no guard, and just have her. Okay, there's two reasons. One, your hair won't grow back as thick. I know some people think it's a myth, but it's not. it happened to me. I had to get a whole bunch of laser done to get that to go away. But secondly, shaving irritates the skin. It makes you itchy. Sometimes the shit grows back stubbly. You can get a lot of ingrown hairs and stuff. You don't want any of that, right? But if you use a shaver without the guard, it leaves like this much hair, but you can't see it. Like from far away, like when I take photos, people are like, oh, did you shave? I'm like, I'm not shaved. I trim. It's just a trim, but it makes the hair so short you can't even see it. But it also makes it so you're not going to get stubble. You're not going to get ingrown hairs. And lastly, for your girlfriend, it's way easier and way faster. There's no shaving cream application. It doesn't take this little shaver like an hour to shave your back. Tell your girl, I got a really good plan for you. It'll take you 5 minutes. And if you love me, this is part of us being together. Now, if you try everything and she won't do it, I used to actually get, when I was single, I used to get a girl. One, I used to go for waxes sometimes. Then I used to go for lasers. And then there was another time I used to go see a hairdresser that would cut my hair and then trim my back after. I know it sounds fucked up, but I used to go to a salon. They would cut my hair and then we would go into like the back bathroom area and she would trim my back for me and I would pay her extra money for that. So there's always a way around it. But my best bet is if you're a white guy with dark colored hair, invest in laser, man, because it was the best thing I ever did. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And when it does grow back, it grows back so fine, you can't really see it. So Vigorson says, how do you maintain balance and sanity while working at maximal capacity towards a goal? There's no such thing as balance and there's no such thing as sanity when you're getting ready for a show. And I know that sounds like cliche, like, oh, I'm so hardcore, but there is no balance, man. There's no balance. My wife completely leaves me alone. And she knows. I just came out with this t-shirt for the Hostile Brandwear line that I have. It says on it, unapologetically obsessed. Okay. And that's because that's what bodybuilding is, especially in prep mode. You're fucking obsessed. You're obsessed with the show. You're obsessed with getting better. You're obsessed with winning. You're obsessed with doing every single thing you can do to be a better bodybuilder in that moment. More cardio, more weights, more, cutting food out of your diet and making it harder for yourself. Whatever it is you have to do, you're doing at the maximal level, and you don't give a shit about balance or anything else in your life. I could give a flying you-know-what, because when I'm getting ready for a show, that's all I care about. I want to do my cardio. I want to come home and get my meals in. I want to go back and train my ass off. I want to make sure I have time to stretch and get therapy, and I want to make sure I get some sleep, and I want to make sure I don't cheat on my diet. That's all I care about. I don't care about balance. I don't care about going to family dinners. I don't care about going out for birthdays. I don't care about going to somebody's wedding. I don't give a shit. So all I'm trying to say is those people who will fault me for that, I am unapologetically obsessed. I don't give a shit what you think. I don't care if you think it's wrong. I don't care if you think I should have balance because I'm missing out on life. This is the way I like it. And this is the way it has to be for me to be successful. Now, that's not speaking that way for everybody. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure there are some people that are able to go to different outings and go to different dinners and go out party with their friends and not drink and do whatever it is and become successful. I have not seen it in open bodybuilding. Maybe men's physique guys have a little more leeway. Maybe like bikini girls don't have to train as hard. I don't know if they do. Nobody take offense. But in open bodybuilding, I have yet to see the guy who's prepped for a show and been able to live his whole life normally while doing that. I mean, look, I'll give you the perfect example. You want to see somebody unapologetically obsessed? Look at Brandon Curry. The guy lives in Kuwait for like 8 months out of the year. He's got 4 kids. I think 4. He's got 4 kids. This guy has 4 kids he wants to be with. He's got a wife he loves. He's got businesses to run here. And he's like, I'm sorry, I got to go fucking train. And his wife is good enough and loving enough to be like, yeah, he does. Okay, go train. That's somebody who's obsessed. But with that obsession comes the front runner spot at the Olympia. Everybody's talking about Brandon Curry being the front runner. Why? It's not because he's genetically gifted or he's lucky or they're handing him something that he doesn't deserve. He's living in a different country for 8 months out of the year without his family, his friends, his wife. That's obsession. But he knows that's what it takes to be in the spot he's in. So that's what I have to say about being obsessed and balance and all that other shit. JM Pow says, when dieting for a show, especially the last month, where does your motivation come from when finishing the prep? I don't know why I kept this question. Are you serious? The motivation, where does my motivation come to finish the prep? I don't want to look like an asshole on stage. In 4 weeks' time, I'm about to get on a stage in front of 500, 5,000 people, whoever's watching, in my underwear. If you can't have the motivation to go to the gym when you know you're going to be in your underwear in 4 weeks in front of your friends, your family, a whole shitload of people, whatever, then it's the wrong sport for you. There shouldn't be motivation at that point. It should just be fear. You should be like, holy shit, I got to go on stage in 4 weeks. I got to get my fucking ass to the gym because I still look like shit. That's the motivation. That's the motivation. It's finishing what you started. And it's finishing without embarrassing yourself. Right? John 1471 says, do you really eat cheat meals from Five Guys because they have real meat and real potato, or is it just really because they taste better than Mickey D's? Actually, John, I'm going to shock you. I like Mickey D's better than than Five Guys. But I do eat Five Guys because it's real meat and real potatoes. That's why I started going there. But if I had my choice, I would take McDonald's or Burger King because I love that really shitty fast food burger. It's nothing better than a good Big Mac or a good Whopper, right? Five Guys is good when I want like a real meal. But when I want that crappy junk food taste, I want a Big Mac or a Whopper. TO Total says, eating in a definite surplus, but the scale weight is not moving and lifts are barely moving up. Am I overtrained? I probably shouldn't have kept this question because there's way too many variables. It could be you're overtrained. It could be you're still not eating enough. It could be maybe your day job has you being too active, so you need more food. It could be you're lifting the wrong way, so it's not conducive to getting stronger. Like maybe you're doing too many reps. Maybe you need to focus more on strength if that's what you want, is to get stronger. There are so many different variables to this question that I can't answer it properly. It doesn't sound like you're overtrained. It just sounds like you're either not eating enough. Because look, just because you're in a surplus, it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to gain weight. And I'm not sure why. I can't explain that scientifically. But for example, my daily caloric intake is like 3,800 calories, I think. And I easily eat 45 to 5,000 every day. Sorry. I easily am in a surplus every day. I've been at 285 for the last 2-3 months. So sometimes you have to push it a little further. Even if you think you're in a surplus, push it a little harder, see what happens. Take some day, if you think you're overtraining, take some days off. Work out 5 days a week. If you're working out 5 days a week and you still think you're overtrained, work out 4 days a week for a couple of weeks, see what happens. Like, you have to experiment a little bit. Grayson Krieger says, as a young bodybuilder coming up, is it important to take affiliate programs with companies or wait it out until you're in a position to be paid? Okay. I really like this topic because there's a lot of this goes around. So okay, if you have the money and you don't need free supplements and you don't need free clothing from like whatever these clothing companies are, then don't do it unless you just want to be part of something. If you just want to be part of something and you want to say you're sponsored, then yeah, go be an affiliate, go be an ambassador, whatever you want to call it. But if you don't need the supplements and you don't need the clothes, then who gives a shit? If you're, okay, I'm speaking in terms of somebody whose objective is to make this a career. If your objective in bodybuilding is to make a career out of it and make money, think of it this way. You want to be branded as few times as possible. That doesn't mean being branded once means your career is over. If you go, let's say you're an ambassador for First Form or something, right? Doesn't mean that nobody else is ever going to sign you. But if you're ambassador for First Form, then you're ambassador for Cage Muscle, then you're ambassador for Redcon, then you're ambassador for Optimum or whatever company, right? Let's say you pick whatever company. Okay, the person that wants to pay you now looks at your Instagram and he's like, holy shit, this guy's been branded by 8 different companies. I can't use this person anymore. Okay. That's number one. Number two, don't sell yourself short. If you don't need the supplements, don't let somebody use you to make money. Like, the company is going to use you as an ambassador to make money. You're their advertisement. They're going to give you supplements in return. If you need the supplements, then it's a good trade-off. Hey, you know what? I need supplements. I don't want to pay for them every month. This works for me. I'm going to post a few times that I use the product. They're going to send me some stuff. It's a fair trade for everybody. But if you don't need the supplements, then and you can afford to go buy your own, then you're really just doing something for nothing. There's no point at that point. There's no point because you already have your own money to buy supplements. When I was coming up, I wanted to get the sponsorship because I thought it would lead me to making more money. So I'm not going to name any names, but I was with a certain company. When I got to the top of the amateur ranks, I said to that company, I would like to get paid. I've already won the nationals. I don't have my pro card, but I'm going to win the nationals this year and I'm going to get my pro card. And I did win the nationals 2 or 3 times I won twice without getting my pro card. So the company said, no, we don't want to pay you. I waited out my time. I was with them for 2 or 3 years without getting paid. At the time, there's no such thing as ambassadorship. You kind of started that way. You started with a company, you kind of worked for free, and then you would graduate, if you turn pro, into a salary. When they said they didn't want to pay me, I decided to take a walk. I was like, well, I'm out of here. This isn't worth it for me anymore. I can afford to buy my own supplements. So I left. When I turned pro, I got signed by a bigger company that paid me immediately a salary. Now, the point of the story is this. If you think you're worth getting paid, don't sign with anybody and not get paid. If you know you're not worth getting paid, but you want the free supplements, go ahead and sign with somebody for supplements. If you know you're not worth getting paid, but you don't need the supplements, then don't sign with somebody for no reason unless you just want to say you're part of a team. It's kind of how I feel, 3 scenarios, right? If you think you're worth getting paid, you gotta tell me why. Is it, I got 50,000 followers and I think I deserve $500 a month or $1,000 a month, or I got 500,000 followers and I deserve 3, 4, 5 grand a month? Or is it, I got 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube? Or is it, I won the nationals this year, I want to get paid? You can't just say I'm worth getting paid because I'm a nice guy. You got to have a reason. You got to have something to sell to somebody. You're selling yourself to the company, even though they're using you for employment to make money for them. There's a million of you. So you have to sell them on why you're the one they want to pay. You either have to have a good following, you have to have like some type of social media following, like Instagram, YouTube, something like that. You have to be placing really well, or they might have to look at you and go, yeah, you know what? You got tons and tons of potential. The last one's tricky. Most companies will not pay you based on potential. This isn't basketball. You know, in the NBA, they'll take a kid in high school and be like, that kid's going to be a superstar. We're going to pay him millions of dollars before he ever plays one game. That doesn't happen in bodybuilding. In bodybuilding, you got to be, most of the time, it happens very, very rarely. Most of the time, you have to prove yourself and let them and sell them, show them what they're buying. So it's kind of how I look at it. It's a complex issue, but just don't sell yourself short, number one, but also don't be delusional. If you have 1,000 followers and you have no YouTube channel and you have never placed in a show and you're still just getting ready, but you think you look really good, you're not going to get paid. That's not how it works. You have to have done something or have something to show them before they're going to give you any money. If you're in the off season and you had for example, a beach date in a couple years, what could you change on your diet, training, or in order to maximize your current look? Nothing. Okay. This is something I dealt with my entire career. Not because I had beach dates. Well, I went away on one vacation as a fat guy, but look, it depends who you are. Okay. If you're just bodybuilding for fun, then yeah, you're going to go on a keto diet and crash diet and do tons of cardio and trying to burn off as much fat as you can over the course of the week so you can go to your beach date and not look like a whale. But if you're a serious bodybuilder who wants to turn pro or is a pro and is getting ready for a show or anything like that, you are not going to give a fuck about a beach date to ruin your off season. Every day counts. Okay. I know you don't think so. I know in the middle of August or the beginning of August, you know, your show is until next July and you're like, well, I don't care. I got a whole year. Every day counts. Every day. Okay. The guys who do the best in this sport are the guys who have the least amount of bad days. Okay. Not the guys, you know, obviously this is genetics and all that. It's not the guys who know the most or figured everything out perfectly or have the best coach or no. It's the guys who know enough, but they've had the least amount of bad days in the year. They are going to end up at the show looking better than you. And if you take a week and crash diet, the guy that beats you next year is going to be the guy that did not take that week and he was banging out every day, doing what he's supposed to do all the way until showtime. And he's going to be 1 week better than you. Okay. Now, it's not the way it works all the time because genetics play a part and there's a lot of different factors. But I don't fuck around like that. Okay. If I'm in the off season and my focus is getting big and putting on enough muscle for next year, I'm not ruining it for a beach date. I'm going to show up to that beach date. I'm going to tell that girl, look, this is how I look all the time. I'm a little chubby right now. I'm getting ready for a show next year. I look fucking awesome when I'm dieted down, but you're going to have to wait because right now I'm bulking up and this is what I look like when I'm bulking up. So if you don't like me now, then you don't get to like me later when I fucking look good. Right. So that's what I would do. Now, more realistically, what happened to me all the time was I would have expos to go to. A lot of guys would diet down for those expos. Oh, the Arnold Columbus is coming. I got to diet down. There's going to be a lot of people at the expo. I got to look good. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to look big in a tank top and I'm going to the expo and I'm not ruining my off season so I can look good one day in the middle of my off season. I'm not going to diet down for one day in the middle of my off season. It's not going to interrupt my progress. So I don't really agree with the question. Now, like I said, if you're not a hardcore bodybuilder, you're not getting ready for a show, you're not getting paid or none of this, you're just doing it for fun. Yeah. Take the fucking week off. Take the week off, do a ton of cardio, do a bunch of drop your carbs and just start getting shredded as fast as you can for the week. I don't think it's going to work in a week, but you can get some of that weight off. Abiad says, do you think politics play a role in show placings? Not as much as people think. And I don't think it's politics like some evil thing going on behind the scenes. I think it's more like human nature politics. Like, let's say you have a lineup of 6 guys. And let's say you have a lineup of 7 judges or 6 judges, or whatever. And the head judge maybe he's friends with one of the guys on stage. That guy's probably going to get a better look. Okay. He might get a better look because he's, it's human nature. I'm not saying the judge is doing it on purpose. He might just be like, oh, fucking so-and-so looks good this time around. And he gives him an extra look, right? Let's say it ends up being two people in the final call out and the one guy is really good friends with the head judge and the other guy's not. I wouldn't be shocked if the guy who was friends won. Now, I'm not saying if he's worse, he's going to win. I'm saying if they're fucking dead even, then human nature might take over and he might get the nod. But I don't think it's malicious. Like, I don't think the judges sit around and plan like, oh, well, we got it. It's not WWE. Like, I don't think they're saying like, oh, we should let Sean beat Phil because if Sean beats Phil, then Phil will have to come back and it'll make a great drama story. I don't think that's what's happening. I think if there's politics, I think it's more of a human nature type politics. It's more unconscious than conscious. John 94 says, thoughts on periodizing your training when training to really grow. Example, 8-week block of strength-based training and an 8-week more of hypertrophy. Yeah, I like that. There was a long time where I would do like 5 weeks of strength and then probably 10 weeks of growth. So the 5 weeks of my 5-week strength phase was based on 5 reps. So I would do 5 weeks where I would do less volume per set, like less exercises per body part. So I might do like 3 exercises. And I would do less sets total. So instead of 5 or 4, I would do 3 maybe. But I would do heavier weight. And I would do 5 reps usually was the number for me. That was my strength phase. And now it's a very simplistic strength phase. It's not like any of these power lifter guys with their deload and reload and all this other shit. But I just did a lower volume, lower rep, more rest phase where I was focusing on strength, which actually I got bigger anyway. And then from there, I would transition to more volume, more days, less rest, and I would keep growing. I would lose a little bit of the strength that I gained, but I would keep growing. And then I would go back to it. And I did that for a long time, and it does work. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Miguelito Rogue says, should you still take a pump product even when low zero carbs? Yeah, why not? That's what they're there for. So a lot of pump products on the market now don't have carbs in them. And you can take them on a keto diet. It doesn't matter. You're still going to get a pump. But like, it's still like citrulline is going to work without carbs. Like any of the main pump ingredients that you can think of are going to work without carbs. So you don't need to have carbs to take a pump product. It'll still work. You're still going to get a pump. Like even if you're on a keto diet, you still, your body at that point is using fat for energy. So you're still going to get a pump from that. So it's not that you can never get a pump because you're on low carbs. Because even when I'm on low carbs and getting ready for a show, I still get pumps. Now they're not as good as when you're eating like a lot of carbs, but you still get pumps. 3 Abiad 22 says, does pump equal growth? And does that mean site injections usually give pumps? Does that mean it grows better? No. Site injections do not give pumps. Site injections cause irritation. So if you do a site injection in your bicep, it's going to cause irritation and make your bicep swell a little bit. That's not the same as a pump in the gym. A pump in the gym is you're driving blood to the muscle because you're training it. And with that blood that's being driven to the muscle comes nutrients. That's all being driven to the muscle and causing it to swell. Now, the pump doesn't equal growth. The pump just means you drove a bunch of blood there and drove a bunch of nutrients there. What the growth is you're tearing that muscle down by lifting weights. And then the growth comes afterwards when you're resting and the muscle regrows, right? So this is what it starts like. Your fibers are there. And when you train really hard, the fibers go like this and they tear, right? They tear. And then your body has to adapt to that tearing and it regrows the muscle bigger and stronger after you rest. So just having a pump doesn't mean you're growing. I can go lift 10-pound weights and get blood drawn to the muscle, and it will give me a pump. It doesn't mean I'm going to grow, because it's not causing any type of trauma for my body to adapt to. You have to cause trauma that your body has to create a stimulus to adapt to so that the muscle can grow. Without trauma, there's no adaptation. So just pumping a bunch of oil into your bicep, even though it's going to swell up, there's no trauma being made there. So the bicep is going to look bigger, but only because there's oil there. It's not because it grew at all. So no, pump does not equal growth, and site injection oil also does not equal growth. Take a couple more here because we've been on for about an hour and a half. When cutting, a man pal man says, when cutting, how many pounds of fat do you try and drop per week? I find it difficult to maintain muscle as I cut down. I think I try to cut too much. 2 pounds a week. 2 pounds a week, I feel like, is a good average to lose. That's why when these people say, oh, I lost 40 pounds in a month, I'm like, you fucking lost way too much weight, and that's not all fat. You must have lost muscle in the process. Unless they were severely obese, and then it's a different thing altogether. But 2 pounds a week is a good average to think about. If you're losing muscle, yeah, you're dieting too hard. See, the worst thing people do when they want to lose weight is they cut a whole bunch of calories and they start doing tons of cardio, and they just want to watch the scale drop. But it goes back to what I was talking about in a previous, earlier in the Q&A. If you drop your calories too far, you're going to lose muscle too. And if you lose muscle too, then your caloric intake for the day will go down. If that goes down, then now you have to eat even less food to keep losing weight. The best thing you can do is keep your calories as high as possible while doing cardio, and then burn off fat. And just bring your calories down a little bit to when you start losing weight. Even if it's like a 0.5 pounds a day or 0.25 pounds a day. As long as you're losing a little bit every day, that's perfect, because it means the less you're losing, the better, because you want to hold on to as much muscle as possible. You want to lose a little bit every day, but you want to lose like a pound or two a day, because now you know part of that's muscle. So if part of that is muscle, then that's going to hurt me in the long run. I'm going to have to diet even harder to get this to get weight to come off, to get fat to come off. So I want to retain as much muscle as possible while burning fat. So it's very important to figure out what your calorie needs are for the day. So figure out your caloric need for the day and just subtract it by 100 or 200 calories. Don't just guess. Be like, well, I think I'm going to just eat 2,000 calories a day now, and see what happens. And if you lose 5 pounds in a week, you're like, oh, awesome, I lost 5 pounds. It must be working. No, you lost 5 pounds. It doesn't mean you lost 5 pounds of fat. Could have been 5 pounds of muscle and fat, which is not good. That's the opposite of what you want to do. So this is a situation in which less is more. I'll take this as the last question. Jans Manderfeld says, talking about the podcast, maybe it's so cool to have someone from the Olympia organization or an IFBB judge on the podcast so they can give their side of everything. You hear so many people complaining about judges, etc., but they never get an open platform to give their opinions and explain them further. I don't think that will happen. One, because those videos already exist. There are already some IFBB judges that have done a lot of interviews and explained their positions on things, and extensive interviews on why they picked a certain person over another person. But more importantly, the podcast I'm doing is not about any type of drama or negativity. Okay. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm not doing a podcast to like solve any debates or like give people a platform to like fix whatever people are complaining about or anything like that. Or like somebody said, well, you should get William Bonac on or Sean Roden on so they can express. First of all, they don't want to come on. Okay. I asked William Bonac to come on before the Neil Hill thing came about. And William respectfully said, I don't really do podcasts. I'm probably not. I'm going to pass. I respect him 100% for that. I love that he said no instead of just giving me like the runaround. But it's a thing. Like, I don't want to have a podcast where people come on and William comes on and then he bitches about Neil, and then I have to have Neil on, and Neil bitches about William. And my podcast is not about drama or negativity, and it's not about the judges explaining themselves or the Olympia organization explaining what they did to Sean or any of that shit. The podcast is simply about this. The podcast was started because I wanted to give the pros at the highest level a chance to explain who they are, what they stand for, what they believe in, what they take, if they want to discuss gear or not, what they eat, what their diets are like, if they cheat a lot, if they don't cheat a lot on their diets, if they just everyday stuff, man. And that's why I think people like it, and that's what I think I want to keep it as. I don't want to make it a drama filled, it's not TMZ, it's not Generation Iron, it's not any of those. It's just bodybuilders having a conversation about their life and giving people a chance to listen so they understand that we're just normal people that like to fucking work out. We're not all these crazy things that have been said about pros. I'm trying to give the real pros a chance to speak for themselves so you guys have a chance to understand who we really are. It's not about any of that other stuff. Yeah, so that's that. And the other series I did with Luke, that is just for fun. Me and Luke get along really well, and I thought, hey, I'll put up another podcast, another series with Luke, just to have a good time, so we can shoot the shit and have some laughs. I'll take one more. George Christo IFBB Pro says, how much or little gear do you use during the post-contest rebound? That's a good one to finish with. Honestly, half. Probably half. Sometimes, okay, you guys probably aren't going to believe this, but I think the best rebound I ever had was like 500 milligrams of test E, 500 milligrams of EQ. And I'm not saying it because that was my stack. I'm saying it because that was my off. Like, I was planning on going off about 4 to 6 weeks after the show. So I wanted to run a small stack just to hit the rebound, and so I can keep my blood levels up. So I kept the test E and the EQ in, but only at 5 and 5. And after the rebound kind of, after like 4 to 6 weeks, it starts to fade a little bit. After it started to fade, I went off. And this was at a time when I could go all the way off. Like, now I don't think I can go all the way off anymore. Now I think I got to stay on like 250. But this probably my best rebound was about 10 years ago, maybe less than that. But I felt like I put on like 10 pounds of muscle. I probably didn't, but that's how I felt. But I don't feel like you need, speaking generally, I don't feel like you need a lot of gear post show. Your body is so receptive to the food and to the different training stimulus. Because, the last 4 weeks before a show, even though you're training hard, you're kind of running on fumes because you're just depleted and you're not eating as much. And when your body gets that influx of calories after the show, your training is, even though it might feel the same in number, it's different. Everything just connects a lot better. Everything feels a lot better. Your pumps are a lot better. Everything's swole as fuck all the time. And I don't think you need a lot of gear to add to that. Now, I do like a little bit. That's why I said 5 and 5, because I feel like it keeps my blood levels up. It keeps me from crashing like too hard earlier on. I want to let my rebound kind of last until my body's done with it. Like, I can feel, if I start my rebound eating 5,000 calories a day, it will only last 3 or 4 weeks before I can start to feel things start to level off. And for sure, after 4 to 6 weeks, it's leveled off. I'm not getting those crazy, crazy pumps anymore. At that point, that's when I went all the way off, did a PCT. I think I did that for 6 to 8 weeks at the time. Blood work, after blood work, then I was back on. Now, I just don't see it being a necessary thing to be on a really high level of gear at a time when your body is just doing it by itself. Like, it doesn't take much at that point. Like, you're just eating the food you're eating is making you crazy in the gym. It's making you strong, and your pump is crazy. Everything's crazy. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe that's the best time to take more gear, but I personally don't think so. Because I also use that time as a time to start to let my body recover. So even though I was focused on the rebound, I know I put my body through hell when I'm dieting. So I wanted to give my body a chance to rebound after the show, but also didn't want to like rev it any higher than it had already been going during my prep. So I kind of pulled back on the gear. It's always been the way I've done it. And I still feel like I get good rebounds. I just don't feel like you need a ton of stuff at that point. Okay, guys. So we've been on for like an hour and a half. I'm definitely going to cut this into 2 or 3 parts for the YouTube, but it'll be one full part. The audio version will be one full part. So those of you guys who want to listen to it there can do that. I appreciate all the feedback and all the messages, and please subscribe and share. And check out hostile.com for any merchandise that you want or like.